What's going on? It's time for another episode of Too Hard for the Radio, transmitting from the future-free state of Greater Idaho. I am the one-armed madman, and with me today we've got a newcomer, Mr. Orlando Owen. How are we doing this morning? We're dealing with gremlins in the system, but we're up and running.
Yes. How you doing, brother?
Not too
Very good. Other
bad.
than
Not
that,
too bad.
yeah,
Actually, now that I think it's been a little bit of a rough week, I broke my shoulder a couple months ago, so I'm still healing from
ouch.
that. And then I got
Oh
an
man, I'm sorry to
infection
hear
in
that.
my thumb, so I'm on antibiotics now. But
Ooh.
a couple days in,
Yeah.
so I'm feeling a little bit better.
Good, good. Sorry to hear that, but yeah, good. Yeah, it's just another day in sunny South Florida. And what can I say? I wish it were a little less sunny, but a little less hot, but it's what it is.
Yeah, I don't mind the heat all that much. I'm up here
Yeah.
in western Idaho in the Treasure Valley. It gets
Uh,
pretty hot here, but we've had actually a fairly mild
yeah.
winter and a
Oh,
mild
really?
summer so far
Okay.
this year, which is not too
Good.
bad. I did spend some
Oh.
time in Maui, so I am
Oh yeah,
familiar
yeah. Well then,
with the
yeah.
humidity, you know.
No, I'm Floridian, and I've lived here most of my life, so I'm actually used to it. I've set my AC actually to about 83,
Yeah,
84,
that's not too
not to
bad.
64 like everybody else. But
Yeah,
then
no,
while I lived in
I'm
Florida,
about 68 around here. My my
oh
AC
really?
goes pretty low. Yeah, I don't mess around when it comes to air conditioning.
Yeah, yeah, got it. Yeah, um, yeah. Okay,
You want to
so,
start out? Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
sure. Yeah, I am mostly what people call now these days a masculinity coach. That means I help men and younger men, even older men, to kind of not give their power away, to not be a wuss bag with women. But of course, it also forces me to look at a lot of geopolitics, cultural phenomena, and metaphysics. And I guess what we do is emotional liberation. And what that is, most people are so caught in their own inner dialogue and their own negativity and their own low self esteem that it's all part of it's another break in the wall. It's all part of that matrix structure, and we pretty much help people unplug from that once and for all. And that's in a nutshell what we do.
Yeah, man, it's a very needed, profession at this point. I think young men are very
Mhm.
lost right
Yes,
now.
yes,
So
very,
much has been
very
taken away from us. The ability to
exactly.
own a home, start a family, have a decent job where you're going to make,
Hmm.
an
Right.
honest living and be able to live a life. Like when I grew up in Northern California, my dad was a lineman, my
Oh yeah.
mother was a paralegal for a criminal defense attorney. These are not
Nice.
great jobs, they're good
Mm.
jobs,
Well, they're
but
good jobs.
you're
Yeah.
not gonna,
Yeah.
make millions of dollars being a
No,
lineman
no,
or
they're
or
very much
working.
needed. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a needed profession, but,
Mhm.
my mother bought a house when she was 17. She was still in high school. There was
Jeez.
first-time
Oh
homeowners,
wow.
deals back then, and,
Right.
good luck buying a house when you're 27 at this point. It's so far
Or
out of reach.
67.
Yeah, it's so far out of reach for most people that
Right.
they don't even
Yes.
look at becoming a homeowner at this point. It's like, I'm gonna
Mhm.
rent because that's the only option that I have. And then the
Right.
second option, which,
Mhm.
is the worst option is, "Hey, just go to
Mhm.
college. It doesn't matter if you don't know what you wanna do for a
Good one.
living. You can figure it
Right.
out while you're there," and
Exactly.
it's just such a
Yeah.
trap and such a
Right.
disaster.
It is, and if you remember, I mean, if I remember, I got my this dates me, but I'm Eckerd College here in St. Pete, Florida, class of '84. I paid 28,500 and change for 4 years, full room and board, 21 meal plan. That doesn't buy you a semester
No,
at this point,
not
and
even
that's even
close.
higher than the rate of inflation. We're talking 40 years ago. And yep, that's actually doubling, tripling the rate of inflation even.
Yeah.
So, and besides, what do you really learn? I mean, it's they call it liberal arts or liberal for a
Oh,
reason. It's
I've got a
it's
great story on that. So my retraining, I got hurt doing line work. I lost my hand, got electrocuted working on power lines, and
wow.
workers comp was like, "Hey, we're gonna send you to college." And it's like, "Oh,
Oh
man,
really? Oh
I don't
good.
wanna do
Yeah.
that." I hated
Nah.
school the first time. I went through line
Yes,
school. I did
exactly.
very well, and
Right.
I kinda looked at the situation and it was like, "Okay, I'm gonna get paid to go." And I
Right.
could
Yeah.
try and get back into the workforce immediately, or I
Mm-hmm.
could go through college and get paid to go. And I was worried, like, I'm not gonna pass this stuff. I was a bad student in high school. I'm a smart
Oh yeah.
guy, but I just am
Yes.
not good at school. I'm not good at, like, listening to authority figures that I think don't deserve my respect or aren't
Amen.
actually an authority figure. So, I wasn't really interested in doing it at all. I was like, "Whatever you
Hmm.
guys want me to do, I'll just do that." So, they had some, like, career
Yes.
planner come in. It's like, "Oh, we're gonna put you into business. We'll get you a degree
Right.
in business." I'm like, "Whatever."
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
a degree
Whatever.
in business right now consists of climate
Hmm.
change, works cited, and climate change. That's all you
There
really
you go.
learn at a
That's
business
true.
degree. And I ended up falling behind towards the end because I like to use my iPad for everything. I never learned how to type on a keyboard because I
Hmm.
just never got into computers. And they were like, "Oh, we're going to put you into this computer class where you have to have a Macintosh, you're not a Mac, excuse me, a Microsoft enabled computer, which I don't know
Ooh,
how to use. I've never
I
used
don't know how to use
a
those. No.
Microsoft computer before in my life. And you're going to learn how to do spreadsheets and all this other crap." And it's like,
Hmm.
"Oh my
Good.
God."
No,
And I
thank you.
fell behind in that. I couldn't pass the class. I actually kind of got screwed over by the professor. It's a long story, but it
Hmm.
ended up that I needed that class to pass two other classes in order
Right.
to get my
Right.
degree. And without that class, I couldn't pass these other 2 classes because I didn't know how to do it. And
Yes. Yes.
"Well, we'll just switch you to a liberal arts degree." So the difference
Wonderful.
between a liberal arts degree and a business degree is 2 classes right now. 2 classes. And it was just
Yeah.
so frustrating because, like, as a lineman, I understand
Hmm.
electricity very well. I was good
Hmm.
in basic electrical theory. I understand the theory of transmitting power, transmission,
Right.
and you hear these people talking about energy and you just go, "You're wrong." I'm just telling these
Exactly.
professors, "You're
Exactly.
wrong. Like, that is
Right.
not correct. Like, I don't care what
Hmm.
your book says. I don't care
Right.
what you learned in your geography or in your
Hmm.
geology class. Like,
Yeah.
this is not right." And they
Yes.
don't care. They don't want to listen to you. They are not open-minded in any way at all. And
Hmm.
I am just a thorn in their side, essentially.
Yeah. No, I get that, and I mean, people. I always laugh when I hear people say, "Well, I'm sort of like very rational, scientific, logical," and I'm like, "No, you're just you're closed-minded dumbass." It's
It's
what you're.
dogma. They're just
If you,
they're
yeah,
it's almost like a religious
yeah,
dogma surrounded around
yes,
this
like
climate
religious.
change narrative and,
Hmm.
these liberal ideas. I kinda got lucky at one point where we were talking about, like, what's the, marginalized people and critical theory, and I was, I'm not into that." But luckily, my professor had gone through a nasty divorce, and his
Yes.
wife was a piece of shit. And
Is there
he
any other
kind of
kind?
learned the system going through
Right.
court. Like, his wife's a drug addict, she's a piece of shit, and he has to
Hmm.
fight like hell to get custody of his child, so he was kind
Right.
of disillusioned on that whole thing, and
Yes.
I came
Yes.
up with a great example, I think, for these marginalized voices. I said, "Look, I was born," and this is for their purpose, not mine. Like, I think that whole thing is
Hmm.
stupid, but for the purpose of, getting rid of the dogma, I said, "I was born to a white, pretty affluent family. We didn't have a lot of money, but we did well. So there, I'm not
Right.
marginalized." But
Middle
then I
class.
became a drug addict and I was
Mm.
homeless. So now all of a sudden I'm marginalized. But then I got clean. I got a six-figure
Hmm.
job. I'm doing very well. Back to not marginalized again. But wait, now I lost my hand, so I'm marginalized again. And it's
Right.
just
You
so
can't win. Yeah.
stupid when you look at it like that. It's
Hmm.
like you can go
Hmm.
from one to another depending on your
Right.
current situation.
Yes, no, absolutely. I'm with you on that. And I've certainly had those ups and downs. I've been a millionaire and I've been borderline homeless almost twice. So yeah, I get it.
All right, enough about me. Tell me how you got into this masculinity coaching.
It's always been something where I realized as a child or as a young teenager in school, I was pretty much not part of the cool kids. I had a lot of emotional problems, had very low self-esteem, and I put together this tiny little notebook, and it said problems on the left side, like a ledger, and solutions. In the beginning, it was pages and pages of problems and very little on the solution side. I even studied psychology for that reason and realized wonderful tool to diagnose problems, but absolutely useless when it comes to therapy.
Yeah.
And so I figured like the old ready mix. Find a need and fill it. And I said, look, there's got to be something that can be done about this. Then later I looked, I extended that or expanded that into the masculinity field and said, men have this real problem with, male esteem, as my wife calls it. And it's about men really don't know what they stand for. Most of them stand for nothing. And if you don't have, how can you not give your power away to a girl or a woman if you put her before your life's purpose? And people say, what do you mean life's purpose? Do I have that? Can you eat that? I said, no, I think we're all endowed by a creator with certain unalienable rights, but also with a life's purpose, something that only you can do in the way that you can do it. It's a mix of talents and strength and even weaknesses. And so I looked at all these problems that were like, bedeviling me. And I said, look, if I can fix them for myself, my instinct is, well, then I want to teach everybody else how to
Yeah.
fix them for themselves. And I want to spare people the 20 to 40 year learning curve and collapse it to maybe 2 to 4 years. And I
Yeah.
call it emotional liberty. Give me liberty or give me death. And people have so much, that inner dialogue. It's like your inner little Hitler, or your inner little Joseph Stalin, and it just talks to you. It runs your self-esteem through the ringer, and people. No wonder everybody's unhappy because
Yeah.
we have 60, 70, 90,000 thoughts a day, most of which we thought the same thoughts yesterday. Most of them are negative or disparaging. So how do you get a hold of that? How do you get rid of that? How do you overcome that? And that's sort of like how I develop my stuff,
Yeah.
my,
It's,
my
it's
methods.
something that like men don't think about, I think. Like
Yep.
when I got clean, I was like 28 years old. And at that
Mm-hmm.
point, like I'd done nothing with my life. I was a
Right.
good dirt bike racer when I was younger. I was trying to be a professional for a few years and I didn't make it. So,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of a blow when the only thing
Right.
that you're good at in your entire life fails and you just aren't able to capitalize on it. It's kind of a hit to your system. Yeah.
Oh God, yeah,
And then
absolutely.
also it's a very intense sport. It's an adrenaline rush. And
Mhm.
when you lose that, there's a massive hole inside of you that you don't know how to fill. And many, many motocross racers who don't make it are also
Mhm.
hurt. So that
Oh,
hole
yeah, you
gets
can get hurt real bad.
filled with painkillers,
Mhm.
and
Yes. Yes.
painkillers will take you down a road that you don't want to go
Mhm.
down. And
True.
when I got clean, I was in this spot where it was like, I've done nothing with my life. I have to catch up now. And I was working, 60, 70 hours a week at a bar. I was bartending in San Francisco,
Mhm.
doing very well, but just like missing time. You know what I mean? Like I
Right.
should have been doing this years ago.
Mhm.
And I ended up, meeting my ex-wife while I'm doing that. And we got along great for the first couple years. We were both sober. We met in AA, and I
Mhm.
decided to become a lineman as I'm
Right.
working in the bar because it was one of these things where I was a high volume bartender. I wasn't a guy who's
Mhm.
gonna lean on the bar and talk to you for 2 hours.
Oh,
That
yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
really my
right.
style.
No,
I was making drinks fast. I was doing as much as I could, and
yep, been there, done that, yep.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And, I wanted to get something that was a little bit more permanent with some stability,
Mhm.
so I got into line work, and I had to do it in Northern California. There was nothing near San Francisco, so I'm
Right.
living up in Northern California during the week, coming back and bartending on the weekends. My
Mhm.
ex-wife is living in the room that we rented in a house that we rented with a bunch of people, and within
Right.
the first couple of weeks, she relapses while I'm up there and does some horrible freaking things, and at that point, it was like, I've got a choice to make. I can move on and find something better, or I can try and fix this disaster of a situation. And me being in this lost time phase, I was looking at myself with low self esteem in a lot of ways because it was like, I'm 30 years old, I'm
Mhm.
sober. Like, how am I going to meet somebody at this point
Right.
where I'm going to be able to connect? And like, I just didn't feel that I had the ability to do that. And looking back on it now, I was like, why would you ever think that? Like, you were doing
Mhm.
very well. You had a good job you were going into.
Mhm.
I think that if I wasn't so emotionally torn up while I was working in North Dakota on power lines, I probably
Yep.
wouldn't have hurt myself. you know?
Right, right,
And
right.
we
Yep,
ended
I
up
can
getting
definitely see that.
married after I got hurt, and I remember
Mhm,
telling my dad on the wedding day, I was like, "This isn't gonna work." Like, she's been drunk
mhm,
on and off for the past 2 years. Like, there's just no shot this was gonna work. And my dad,
mm.
in his infinite wisdom, goes, "Well, I married your mother and it didn't work, but, whatever, so just do it
Right, right.
anyways." And it's like, "Great. Thanks for the advice, man."
Right, right, yeah, take
And,
advice from somebody
we
who
moved
masters
up
it,
here
but
to
yeah.
Idaho, and she just became a total piece of shit, and we ended up
Mm,
just having to get divorced. And I look back at, those were the 2 situations in my life when I was quitting motocross and
mhm.
this relationship. Those were the times where I needed a positive male influence in my life, and I didn't have
Yep.
it.
Right. Yes. Yes. And that's another thing. We don't have any mentors. We don't have any
Mhm.
elders. We have this idea. I mean, the cliche of the 40-year-old virgin lives in his mom's basement. But in the olden days, or if you look at other cultures, maybe
Yeah.
China, whatever, people actually have typically up to three, even in some cases, four generations living under one roof.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the large family, and
Mhm.
you're not supposed to. This is almost like a form of isolation when everybody moves apart. And do you really need your own apartment at age 19, like I did? Do you really need that? I'm not sure. But the thing is that we're so even if we do good stuff, our low self-esteem, the whole idea is always on fixing our weaknesses and shortcomings. It's never on capitalizing on our strengths, and it's never actually doing us justice. No matter what we do, we think we can. Oh, if we become super achievers, if we get this or that handled, then our self-esteem will follow suit. No, it doesn't. It doesn't work that way. As a matter of fact, a lot of people are so used to. You take some kid that's never been outside the ghetto and becomes a basketball star. You can take the kid out of the ghetto, but you can't take the ghetto out of the kid. That guy will suddenly, go crazy. Suddenly he's making 3, 5, $10 million a year. He doesn't know what to do with that money, and his low self-esteem will put him right back to where he started.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's
I
that's I think what holds even the best of us hold are being held down by low self-esteem.
yeah.
And
When I grew up in Northern California, you didn't like the thought of living with your parents in your 30s was ridiculous. It was
yeah,
like,
yeah,
or
yeah,
even
of
in your
course, yeah,
20s, it
I
was
get
like,
it.
you can't do
I
that. You
didn't
have
even
to move out. You have to get your own place.
sure.
I ended up in Maui for a year while I was on drugs, and it was such an eye-opening experience. I got a
Hmm.
job for this roofer who had gotten a divorce. He had this beautiful house that he built, like just an
Hmm.
incredible house overlooking the ocean, just,
Right.
millions of dollars, beautiful place. And he was
Hmm.
living in the garage. He was renting out the house to other people and he was living in the garage. And
God.
cuz he got divorced, like
Right.
everybody does, and he wanted to keep his house that he built. And I
Hmm.
remember looking at that going, "Wow, I I've never thought of something like that." And I respected him for it. I was like, that's a guy who is not concerned about what people think or how he
Hmm.
is viewed by his peers. Like, he has this house, and maybe he's not capable of living inside of it right now, but at some
Hmm.
point he will be, and he's
Right.
holding on to it. And another thing that I noticed was a lot of the people that I worked with at the bar that I worked at lived at home with their families, not their
Hmm.
mother and father, their
Right.
entire families. And
Yes.
it
Yes. Their
wasn't
entire family.
frowned upon. It was like,
No.
"Hey, this place is impossible to make money. It's really
Hmm.
hard to live, and we're gonna
Yes.
do the best we can, and we're gonna
Hmm.
help each other." And
Right.
the fact that it wasn't frowned upon was just
Hmm.
kind of like an a mind-bending experience for me. So when I got divorced, I moved people into my house. I rent out rooms in
Hmm.
my house. I can't afford to live in the house by myself
Right.
right now,
Right. Yep.
but at some point I'm going to be able to. And I
Hmm.
wasn't about to lose my house because I was going to get divorced. Like, that was just not something that I wanted to do.
No.
The only smart thing I've ever really done in my life was buy this house, and I'm
Hmm.
not going to put myself in a position to lose it. So if
Yep.
I hadn't had seen that with my own eyes, I don't know that
Hmm.
I would have even thought about renting the rooms out. And in
Right.
fact, like, I had a dining room in my house that I
Hmm.
wasn't using for a couple of like for 5 years, I hadn't used it. I was using it for extra storage because I don't really have a ton of friends here. I don't do dinner party types of things. And I
Mhm.
looked at one of my tenants one day was talking about building a house or like buying a house or buying land. And I'm like, why don't you buy some land? You put a RV on the land. You build a barn around the RV. You
Mhm,
build a
mhm.
granny unit into the barn. You move into the
Right.
granny unit, and then you build the house. And at that
That
point,
actually
like
works, yeah.
I was talking about this building that I was considering building on my property, and I pulled out my house plans, and I start looking at that room, and I go, shit, I could remodel that room and make it a bedroom. So now it's a
Mhm.
bedroom.
Yeah, yeah, you gotta be creative, and I think it'll come back. I think we may revert or not revert back to that. I think it may come to that. I think,
We may
it's
not have a
become so
choice.
impossible to afford this. 50% of all, or probably 60%, but not of all marriages get divorced. People are on their own. People lose all their money, and it's gonna come to that. I think it's gonna be a lot more, a lot more consolidated in the old ways, all the way to bartering societies and so forth. I think we'll see that. I also pretty much think we're no longer the United States. I think we'll probably split up in, Alex Jones calls them FEMA regions, but
Yeah.
I think it's it could be something like that. I mean, if you look at the map, I think we could easily break into 8, 10, 12 different smaller countries. Kind of what happened to the Soviet Union after, the 1991, 92.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm a great proponent of states' rights versus the federal government. So, everybody talks about the Federalist Papers, but there was actually the Anti-Federalist Papers, and I found those much more interesting. I think a lot of stuff needs to revert back to the states, or even down to the currency. Look at what Texas is doing with that Texas bullion depository and so
Yep.
forth. I think Idaho is doing the same thing, if I'm not
Yep,
mistaken.
Greater
Go back.
Idaho. We've got most of the eastern, excuse me, counties in Oregon have all voted to secede to Idaho. The only thing that is really holding that up is
Yep.
Portland and Boise, who doesn't want it. Neither one
Oh,
of them
yeah,
want it
the
because
liberal cities
Portland
always. Yeah,
wants to rule over these people and have
sure.
more, representatives in their government. And
Yep.
Boise wants control over Idaho, and they don't want more red counties coming in. But
No,
like
exactly.
it's
Right.
not going to last forever. In our
No,
last
no.
governor election, I can't say it correct, gubernatorial election, we had
Right.
77% of the vote went to Greg Abbott, who I not Greg Abbott, but what's his name?
No, that's
Brad
Texas,
Little.
yeah.
Abbott's in Texas.
Yeah,
Brad
yeah,
Little, who I can't stand. And then Ammon
right.
Bundy got the other 20. Ammon Bundy was only 2% less than the Democrat.
Oh, really?
And
Wow.
that tells me that this state is
Mhm,
wants to redraw the lines, and I
mhm.
hope we do it at some point. I mean,
I think so, yeah. I think so. I'm
there's
pretty sure that will
pathways to
happen.
do this. Tom Woods, the great Tom Woods, wrote a book about it. I was looking it up as you were talking, but I can't find
Mhm.
it right now. I don't remember what it's called, but there's actual, carve outs in the Constitution to do things like this. And
Yes.
once one place does it, there's going to be a whole
Mhm.
bunch of places that go, oh, hey, wait a minute, we
Oh,
can
yeah,
do
it'll be a
this too.
domino effect, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
exactly. And I really hope it happens because,
I do too, absolutely, yes.
if these liberal cities want to destroy themselves, I say
Yep.
let them. I
Yeah, let
look at
them.
these riots and shit down in Los Angeles and I go, I don't want anybody to get hurt. I don't want anybody to die.
Mhm.
But at the same
No.
point, like that state is not going to make a turnaround until it gets a whole lot worse. I
Oh,
have
yeah, oh,
family that
yeah,
still live
absolutely.
there that we can't understand for the life of us why they're still living there because if you can't see the writing on the wall at this point, I don't know what to
Exactly.
do for you. At some
Right.
point, like we have family in Northern California that live in fire danger areas, and it's like you're not going
Mhm.
to be able to get insurance on your house in the next couple of years because
Exactly.
a couple more fires and State
Mhm.
Farm is just going to go, you know what? We are
Yeah.
out. And once
No, it's
one of
gonna
the
happen.
big
Same thing
insurance
in Florida with the
companies,
hurricanes, but yeah.
yeah,
And
once
I
one
remember
of
the
the
Oakland
big
fire
companies
back
goes
in,
out,
God, what was it, 89-ish? The big Oakland fire. Then, of course, the Loma Prieta quake. I was
yep,
in San Francisco for that. Wonderful. But I was on bedrock, so it didn't, I thought it was a 4. And then I realized, oh, yeah, not, no, that was actually more 7.1. But yeah, I mean, Northern California, even Southern California. I lived on a sailboat between 2013 and 2017 in Marina Del Rey in LA. Good riddance. I mean,
yeah,
I just moved back to my home state, which is Florida, with all its own problems and Gulf hurricanes and all this stuff. But I think it's going to break up into. We're really not we're not the United States anymore. We're really the divided states of America, and I think it's going to only get worse. And I mean, it's not so much left and right. I think it's also up and down. It's along different lines of division. I think than what we're used to. No longer believe in the left right paradigm as much.
No, people
Yeah,
are
as a
disillusioned.
libertarian, neither one of these options, not the Republicans,
Yeah.
not the Democrats, are very appealing to me at this point. I think it's too corrupt. They're all in on it,
Yeah, we're
and
sick of
they're just all.
everything. We're sick of the wars. We're sick of the money printing. We're
Yes,
sick of the
yes,
corruption in
yep,
Congress. Like this ridiculous crap with Iran and Israel right now is really showing the divide. I
you're
feel the
right.
same way. This is a
Mm-hmm.
disaster. But the good thing about it is like when you go on Twitter for the last couple days, people
Mm-hmm.
are not having it. This is not like it
Oh, really?
was in
I'm
nine
not,
11.
but
Like,
yeah.
I remember when we went into Iraq, my attitude
Mm-hmm.
at that point was like, turn the entire place into a fucking parking lot. Like, I don't care. These people need to go. Now
Right,
I'm in the
right.
camp of like, I don't care what they do over there. We have our
Mm-hmm.
own problems here that we need to
Right.
deal with. Let them deal with their own bullshit. If they want to kill each
Mm-hmm.
other, that sucks, but let them do it. I
Let him do it.
really,
Let him. Yeah, let him duke it out. And it's really. I mean, I'm at this point. I'm probably being accused of being an isolationist, but
so be it.
even in the days of infamy when we had Pearl Harbor, I'm one of those people that says, well, maybe not made it happen, but definitely let it happen.
Yeah.
And we needed that to get into the war. But I mean, the script never changes. And if you look at, for instance, there's a guy on the internet, Brian Berletic, a Marine, the new Atlas, and he looked at the Iran papers, all that stuff, PNAC, the Grand Chessboard by Micah Brzezinski's father,
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
pronounce
I
it,
can't
no
say it
man talk,
either.
but that guy, I mean, this is we're looking at the, remember when Wesley Clark, was it
Yep.
15, 20 years ago, it said 7 countries in 5 years,
Yep.
and they went through 6 of them, and now it's number 7, and they destroyed Syria, destroyed Libya, and now they're trying to do the same thing to Iran. Has nothing to do with a nuclear program, has nothing to do. If Iran is smart, they'll get the nuke now. If they're
Yeah.
truly a threshold state in the week or 2 or 3 a week, this is the time to do it.
Yeah.
Sorry, but I'm not for nuclear proliferation. I'm very much with Scott Ritter on all this.
Yeah.
But man, if I were Iran, I'd get the nuke right now.
Yeah,
Probably
I
can't.
wouldn't blame them either. Like
No.
they are their existence is at stake right now. And
Absolutely.
you know
Yeah.
what, like what drives me nuts is that like the US kind of sits on the side, like for Ukraine, for instance.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
some of my friends and family were pro Ukraine in the beginning, and they're kind of off of that.
Yeah. I'm not.
But we go, I'll tell them we are at war with Ukraine. No, we're not. We're not at war.
Right.
We didn't send soldiers. It's like, look, if me and you got into a scuffle, and
Hmm.
you've probably got more resources than me, you've got a bigger, nicer place. You're the bigger
This is not my
country.
place. This is green screen. What you're
Oh,
looking
okay.
at, that's
But
not my
anyways,
place.
like in this example,
I
you're the
don't live
bigger
there.
country, I'm the smaller country. But what if I go over to Cabela's in my
Right.
town and go, "Hey, these guys are messing with me. Can you sponsor me in this war?" At that point, you're no longer at war with me. You're at war
Right.
with Cabela's.
Yes, you're the villain, and this is why we cannot. I mean, Trump says this is not my war, and here's the thing. I mean, Trump actually made it possible for all these exercises, training exercises, maneuvers to happen on the Russian border, and he tripled the Ukrainian army. It is very much his war, and even if it weren't, he could have walked away. He should have just walked the hell away.
He said
But
he
he
was
made it
going
his war.
to.
He now owns it, and now he owns this whole. I mean, the best president Israeli money can buy, APAC and all that.
Yeah.
And this is not. I didn't vote for. I voted for Trump. Full disclosure, I voted for Trump 3 times in a row. The first time, yeah, let's see where it goes. The second time, yeah, go Trump. The third time, like, it tastes like
Yeah.
cod liver.
Because
And
it's better than the alternative, and I hate
well,
that
yeah,
paradigm, you know what I
that's the
mean?
only reason I
And
did
I
it.
was kind of on the same page. I don't vote, I'm not a voter, like, and
Good for
I
you.
live in
Good for you. I
Idaho,
wish I
so
hadn't. I already regret it.
yeah,
Good for
like,
you.
I've never voted in my life, I never will. I'm
Good
more of
for
like
you.
a libertarian anarchist
Yeah,
type, and,
you're
like,
right.
I don't believe in government and voting. I think
No,
it's all
I don't either.
stupid, and
Yeah,
it's a
exactly.
ritual that, like, we don't really need, and,
Yeah.
you know I was on the fence of like Kamala Harris is so bad. She is so
Yeah.
awful that like we
She's
can't set this precedent of having this awful person who stands
yeah,
for nothing and is just drunk and high on benzos all the time.
precisely,
Like we
precisely.
can't have that. So I
Mhm.
was kind of in the
Yeah,
camp of like, yeah, we kind of need Trump to be in office at this, but at this
that's
point, like he has done nothing that he ran on. He ran on ending the war in
nothing.
Ukraine in 1 day. And we're
Mhm,
months
yeah,
in right now, and the thing is
right.
still freaking going. And it's the crazy thing is like I'm reading a book right now from an
Mhm.
author that is going to come on the podcast here in a couple weeks. I've read his current books, and he has a different view on Trump than we do. He thinks he's
Okay.
this right wing strong man who's all in bed with Russia and all these things. And it's like,
Yeah,
hey,
no.
look at what's going on right now. If he was all
Right.
in with Russia, this thing with Iran wouldn't be happening. The war in
Exactly, wouldn't.
Ukraine would be
No.
over already, and he would have given
Mhm.
away half of their land or
Absolutely.
their resources, whatever. And that hasn't happened yet.
No, no.
No taxes on tips, mass deportations. All of these things are not happening so far. Like we
Nobody's
have
being deported. I mean, yes,
a few people, but
college students are being deported. That's about it. But I mean, even 19 was it after the Great Depression? Yeah, when Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who I'm absolutely not a fan of, but when he came in, he suddenly we had 20-30% unemployment, Great Depression, right? So he deported back in the early 30s, I guess, 9 million people. And the reason he supposedly did that was like, well, Americans didn't want those jobs, but now they do because now they need them. And there'll be civil war between them and the Mexicans if we don't deport them. It's for their own protection. That's what he said anyway. So
yeah.
he deported 9 million people. This is in an age when we didn't have computers and Homeland Security and all these tracking things. How did he do it? I have no idea. But Trump doesn't seem to be able to deport anyone but a few people that he doesn't like. And I mean, we're not, the border may be closed. I doubt even that, but I think there'd be about 20-30 million people came in.
Yeah.
We need to deport them. I agree. But it's not happening.
I think it's
And
probably
it's
closer
like
to 50.
none of he's losing space. He must lose in space. And then he says, well, Tulsi Gabbard said Iran doesn't really have a nuclear program. He says, I don't care what she says.
Yeah.
And Air Force One. He just said it like there you go,
Yeah.
whenever he said it.
You
I
know,
don't care what she says.
Chris Hedges wrote an article in the New York Times in
Oh yeah, Chris Hedges.
1995 saying
Oh,
Iran is weeks
oh,
away from a nuke. That is 30 years
I
they've been
know.
saying
Yeah,
the
they've been
same
saying
thing.
that for
You
about
know,
as long.
I saw a great tweet yesterday where the redheaded libertarian put up all of every time that they've said that Iran is close to a nuke by
Right.
year. And then she also put over on the other side every time they've got a climate change thing wrong. And it's
Oh yeah,
you
yeah,
just
right,
read
right,
through and there's like 50 of them, and it's like
right,
these
right.
people have been wrong about everything. And I don't
Climate
think that
change.
Americans don't want construction and factory jobs. I think they
Hmm.
don't want them for $8 an hour.
That's true, but I think for reasonable pay, and I mean we have this deindustrialized, and we think we're still that country of Liberty ships and Rosie the Riveter. Remember that? Yes, we
Yeah.
can. The girl, the Liberty ships. Yeah, we produced what now thousands of these damn ships, and we couldn't do that now. Russia can, China can, North Korea can. They have manufacturing bases. Say about these countries what you will. Even Iran, they have an industrial base. They're actually making heavy stuff like steel and coal and all that stuff. We couldn't do that to save our lives. It would take us 30 years to retool, if it couldn't even be done at all, to even come back to where we have heavy industry and all that stuff that built America. That stuff is gone.
Yeah.
And it's not coming back. And you can pull carrier back from China, whatever the hell. No, it's too late. It would take us 30, 40 years to retool back to the States, even where we were in 91.
Yeah.
And we were already like going to a service industry. It's all financial industry. It's fluff. There's nothing to it. It's completely fictitious.
Yeah. And
But
I'm not a
that's- yeah.
fan of like Vladimir Putin or Xi Jinping. I'm not a fan of government or
No,
governors in
no,
any
sure.
way. But when you look at pictures of downtown Moscow, you have
Yeah.
a homologated population. It's
Right.
clean, it's
Yep.
safe, and people are happy. When you look at cities in Europe and the United
Mhm.
States, like when I lived in San Francisco from 2010-ish, 11 to 2015.
Okay.
That
Right.
city was a fucking disaster the
It
entire
was a
time.
disaster back in the 80s when I lived there.
I'm sure it was. They were still rebuilding the freeway from the 1989 quake when I was there in 2015. They hadn't finished it yet. You know what
Oh,
I
then
mean?
Oakland, the 880 limits and all that. Oh my God.
If
Yep.
that happened in China, they'd have it done in a couple of weeks.
I know, and it's unbelievable. They're doing more in a week than we do in a decade.
Yeah,
And I'm not saying everything is great in China. I'm not a fan of that and the
me
tofu
either.
buildings and all that.
But
But
it's clean in a
uh,
lot of places. They do have a lot of pollution, but they are at
yeah, yeah,
least a homologated population. You know what I mean?
sure,
We
yep,
we have videos all over the internet of women saying that they're scared to walk around in their city because they're being
of
harassed
course,
by immigrants constantly. And like
of
we
course. Oh
can't
yeah,
have that. That has to stop. You can't
yes,
just drop 50 million people into this country that don't
no,
speak the language. Like they have this idea that these people are just coming here for the American dream is
yeah, yeah.
absolute bullshit. They're coming here for a handout.
Sure, for a handout. That's it. Yeah, it's not the American dream; it's American welfare.
Mhm.
And I mean, if you've been to these countries, and I had a lot of dealings with Central and South America in the last 30, 40 years, but yeah, you don't want to live there in most of them places. But hey, man, at this point, they're not contributing to the country,
No.
and it's not just okay. I don't even care if you live a few million illegal farm workers around. I'm actually at this point, I'm almost good with that. I know, but
No,
yeah,
it's
I'm almost
fine.
good with that.
Like at within reason. You know
Yeah,
what I
within
mean?
reason. Yeah,
Within reason. Like we have to be responsible about this. Like
yeah.
we're not going to get Americans to do every job. Like
No,
that's
no,
not going to happen.
that's done.
But
Yeah.
you know, like we have this AI race going on right now and
Yeah.
everybody's freaked out that they're going to lose their jobs over AI and like there are going to be some lost jobs
hmm
over AI.
Sure.
But the
Yep.
problem is we do not produce energy fast enough in this country. I don't
That's
think we're
another
going to
thing.
have a massive, jump in AI in this country in the next few years
Right.
because it's not so much about how well you can program it. It's about
hmm
how fast you can move electrons. And we suck
Yeah.
at building energy in this country. When I was in
hmm
line college, they told us that like 50% of the industry is within 10 years of retirement. That was in
Wow.
2015. That stat
Jeez.
has gotten even worse.
Uh,
So the Biden administration, they wanted to upgrade our energy system by 60%. They wanted to upgrade our transmission system by 60%. That
oh,
ends up
really?
being like wrapping power lines around the world like 8 times or something like that. You know
Right.
what I
Yeah,
mean?
you're right. You're
In the
right.
50s, we were building 10, 15,000 miles. I think we did 50,000 miles of power lines or something like that within like 10 years. Right now,
Right.
last year, we built 300 miles of power lines. 300.
300 miles of.
It's a
Uh,
disaster. But you go over and you look at China, they are pushing electrons. They're building
yeah, they
nuclear
are.
plants.
They
Like
are doing it.
we couldn't build if we decided right now, okay, we're going to
hmm
go nuclear again, which I think we kind of have decided that. We're still
Okay.
not going to get a new plant on within 10 years. I don't care how many regulation Trump cuts, which I don't think he's cut much regulation at all at this point. I don't think he's even focused on it at all. I don't think he
Right.
understands energy at all. And, even if they got rid of a lot of regulations, there's still so much regulation that
Yeah.
you're not going to get it through. And
No.
nuclear has been a bad word for the past, my lifetime because it's so
hmm
dangerous and blah, 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 that all of our best engineers are going into computers and none of them are studying nuclear energy.
Right. Right. That's another thing. And I mean, it's wonderful to have all that, but that's superstructure. But you
Mhm.
need to have the foundations. I mean, coal at this point is actually one of the cleanest
Yeah.
energies you can have. It's very efficient, it's abundant, it's cheap, when it's clean. And people say, no, it's not. No, it is clean. And CO2 is not behind this whole, I'm not saying there is not some kind of modification of the weather. We see that in Florida. But to me, that's not global warming in the classic sense. I've heard these things back in the 1970s, the Club of Rome, 1973, I think it was, the limits of growth or whatever it's called. And yeah, we have 10 years, and then we're dead. And yeah, I've heard that. It's like just like Bibi Netanyahu, 10 years and 10 days,
Yeah.
and they have the nuclear bomb. And it's
Yeah.
like these constant cry wolf, cry wolf, cry wolf, but it never materializes. But people's memory is so short that they don't remember that shit's been around for 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
The same narrative. But if we don't get heavy industry, steel, the old ways, like the Good morning, America. How are you? I'm the train they call the city of New Orleans. I'll be gone 500 miles. And the sons of, whatever engineers are riding the the daddy's magic carpet made of steel. This is what made America great, for better or worse. But
Yeah.
it made America great. We don't have an industry. We couldn't, like, they can produce, like the Patriot system. They can produce, what, 560 missiles a
Yep.
year. Iran, I mean, the Ukraine goes through that in about a week.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
And
We can't keep up. The Russians are not running out of anything. The Chinese aren't running out of things. They have resources, and we want those resources. So we want Russia, we want China, we want Iran. They all have the resources, which we need. But I mean, rare earth. We have more rare earth than America.
yeah.
We don't need it from I call it the Nazi Ukraine, but not the Ukraine.
Yeah. I
It's
like
not even a
that.
country.
I
I mean,
like
it's a
that.
murderous Nazi. And people say, oh, there's no Nazis. Zelensky's Jewish. How could it? No, you don't understand. They're
That's why
Nazis.
he's
Look up
captured,
Stepan Bandera.
because
Look
these
up who these
Nazis
people
will
really
kill
are.
him if he doesn't do what they want him to do. It's ridiculous.
Yep.
And the
It's
hubris of these climate change people just drives me nuts. They've been wrong for 50 years, and
50 years.
and now they want to change the weather for the sake of
Yeah,
people
now they wanna
100 years
change.
from
That's
now.
and they're
100
already
years from
doing
now,
it.
the people are going to be
Geoengineering.
so much more resourceful. They're going to be smarter. They're going to have access to better technology, and they're going to look
Yes.
back at this and go, those people thought they were going to help us. Are they fucking crazy?
Well, that's technocracy. We know better. We have everything under control. We manipulate every aspect of society down to your belief and your soul, and that's what they want. That's technocracy. That's what they want, and it has nothing to do with technology. We need technology, not technocracy. But hey, having lived in St. Petersburg since 1961, on and off St. Petersburg, Florida, not St. Petersburg, Russia, we've never had Gulf hurricanes of that type. Never, ever. This is a new phenomenon. But again, it's not CO2 that's causing this. It is geoengineering. And I mean, one need to not go much farther than read the Eastland patents of, I think, 1994. The Eastland patents. If you've ever heard of HARP or any of that stuff, that's the tech behind it, and it's all patented. And they wouldn't give you the patents if you don't have proof of concept. So, is there climate change? Well, yeah, but it's man-made, yes, but it's not the CO2 emissions. It's people actually doing it. And call me a tinfoil hat, wearing conspiracy theorist. I don't give two shits.
The
But the
CO2
thing
is healthy for the earth.
we have, like, I know a friend of mine. I used to have a friend, well, close acquaintance, that used to work at the National Hurricane Center in Coral Gables, Miami. And he was the one that told me at the time, you don't understand, Andrew had 200 miles per hour sustained wind speed. If it would have been, if there were such a thing as a class 7, it would have been. And he also said, look, when was the last time you saw a hurricane move west to east in the Gulf? I said, never. He said, yeah, exactly, 170 years ago. That was Milton. We had a double whammy. Helene, that thing that went all the way to North Carolina, and it was hundreds of miles offshore, and it still destroyed all of it here. And then the second 1-2 punch came 2 weeks later, and that hurricane moved from west to east. That doesn't happen naturally. And I'm saying, you call me a tinfoil hat idiot, I don't care.
Yeah, no, I buy it.
This is
man.
not normal.
They're
This is
doing
not.
the
It's man-made,
atmospheric-
yes, but it's intentional. It's by people who know what they're doing. It's geoengineering.
Yeah, they're doing atmospheric aerosols and all this ridiculous
that
crap.
and God knows what else, and high intensity ion heaters, like the infamous HARP thing.
Yeah,
but
it heats. It
bombarding
literally
it with very high
excites-
frequency.
It excites electrons in the upper
Yes.
atmosphere to create
Yes.
heat. Like that's
Yes,
what
exactly.
it does, and like the CO2 thing is so ridiculous because if you look at like actual stats, the Earth has gotten greener in the past 30
Yes,
years.
if you want, every time you had too much oxygen and too little CO2 in the atmosphere, let's say 1827 in Ireland,
the little
you
ice
have a
age.
mass exodus and a mass famine. And if you want to go green, you need more CO2. If it didn't exist, it would have to be invented. That's good for the earth. If you want green, you need CO2. That's what plants breathe, right? So
Heat is a good thing. All the best things in human history all came when it was warm. If you look at
Right,
you
exactly.
can put a timeline of human history on the timeline of temperature.
Yep.
Rome, Greece,
Yep.
all of these things happened when it was warm. And
Exactly.
they should be terrified of the cold. Like
Yes,
cold
yes, I am
is
too.
really the killer. During the
Mhm.
ice age, there was not enough CO2 in the atmosphere for cultivation and agriculture. Should
Yep.
scare the shit out of these people.
It
It's
should,
a lot
and-
easier to deal with heat than it is with cold. If it really got too hot on the planet,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
an easy fix. You can put a
Right.
big freaking screen up at our L1 Lagrange point. It wouldn't cost even that much. Elon Musk could do it right now if he really
Yeah,
wanted
you
to,
probably could. You're right.
and we
Yeah.
print
Yeah.
all
To
the
like
money
Grange
right
point.
now
Yeah.
anyways. So it's not like, oh,
Hmm.
we can't afford it. It's like you would just print more money. And that's like kind of the silver lining is they're
Hmm.
printing so much money so fast that at
Yep.
some point they're not going to be able to keep the lights on. It will be kind of like the Soviet Union, I think, in a way where they're going to go,
Yes.
we've got what 200 and something 500. I don't even remember how many military bases we have around the world right now, but it's
Oh, more
hundreds
than like
and
900,
hundreds.
give or take. Nobody
Yeah.
knows exactly.
Yeah, and at some point, they're gonna go, "Oh, we don't have the fuel and the energy to keep these things running." And I
Exactly.
really
Or
think
the
that they're gonna
personnel.
print and print and print until they have no
Hmm.
other choice, and at some point, it's just gonna go belly up, kinda Weimar Germany style, which is
Yeah, I think we're approaching that point. Once you have 100% of GDP, you know, it's this foregone conclusion. There ain't no coming back. And look at the bond auctions, right? That the interest rates are rising,
yep,
and I mean, Trump brought this upon us, not himself and not exclusively, but he certainly didn't help the problem by
yeah.
doing these tariff policies. I mean,
The BBB, the big beautiful bill.
yeah, the
That's
big
a
beautiful pork belly. I
I don't
mean,
think he actually understands what
no,
inflation is.
no, he
Most
does
people
not.
don't,
He's
you
not a
know?
critical thinker. He
Yeah.
doesn't. He
Like
doesn't
I
understand
remember
it.
a couple months ago, I was talking to a family member and we were talking about inflation. And I thought about it and
Mhm.
I was like, I wonder if they actually know what inflation. So I asked, I go, do you know what inflation actually means? And they go,
Mhm.
well, yeah. I go, okay, tell me what it means. Well, prices are going up. I go, no, 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 no. That's
Mhm.
called price inflation.
Yeah.
Actual inflation is the result of printing too much money and
Yes.
debasing the currency. And I don't know that
Exactly.
Trump actually understands what that means. Most people don't
No.
understand what that
No, they
means.
don't. I
They
agree.
don't understand why adding $2 trillion to the deficit is a
Mm.
bad thing. The interest on our debt alone right now is
Yes.
killing us.
Yes, it's now in the trillions, just the interest, and it can never be paid back.
Nope.
So
They're
what do
going to
we do? Is
default.
jubilee? But nobody is giving us money anymore. And you'll watch these the Chinese. If the Chinese decide to no longer buy our debt, good luck with sanctioning them or tariffing them to death. That doesn't matter. If we don't have anyone, I mean, we can print all the money we want, but if we can't can service our debt, then we're really in trouble. And it's not going to be some stopgap measure in Congress or some kind of like raising the debt ceiling. That's all. That's all very simplistic thinking. It's just adding to the problem. So eventually it'll come to a head, and you can just watch the curves. Eventually, like they'll intersect, and when that happens, good night.
Yeah.
And it's already happening to Britain. It's already happening to Germany. And it just want to raise $800 billion for the. Oh yeah, I really want Germany to have a strong military again. Yeah, and lots of tanks. Oh God, what could possibly go wrong, right? We had that once and twice. We don't need it a third time, right? So that's what these people are doing. I mean, they're living on borrowed time, on borrowed money, on borrowed ideology. There's nothing to underpin this, and it will eventually. It's just a matter of time. I'm surprised it hasn't already
Me
collapsed, but
too. Like at
I
some
think
point, I think the BRICS nations are going to come together and go,
yeah,
"We are done with the dollar. Like
yeah, there will be.
this
That
is
will
over
happen.
with." And I wouldn't blame them. And I don't know
Hmm.
what they're going to replace it with. It could be the ruble. It could be whatever China's running.
Right,
They could make
or a
their
whole
own
new
central
currency.
bank digital currency that they
Right.
trade
Yeah.
oil and gas and all that crap with. And like
Hmm.
that would be a disaster. We don't want any part of that. Like it's amazing
Right.
to me. Like even a lot of my family members like
Hmm.
hold their money in cash in their bank
Right.
accounts. And I look at
Oh
that and I
yeah.
just go, oh my God, it's tragic. Like I own Bitcoin and gold and silver, and
Hmm.
I'm
Yep.
diversified a little bit into the stock market, but it's like,
Right.
mining companies, robotics companies, like
Hmm.
companies that are actually producing things, resource companies. Like
Actually
I'm not
producing.
into
Yeah.
these ridiculous companies that I know people who have a lot of their net worth in Tesla right now. What happens if Elon Musk
Oh boy.
dies in a self-driving Tesla tomorrow? What's going to happen to your
Exactly.
stock then? You know what I mean? And
Yes. Exactly.
like you got to
No.
have
No.
hard
No.
assets at this point, and
Yes.
like
Hard
holding
assets
cash
and
is the
yeah.
dumbest thing you could possibly do right now.
True. True. And it's not. I mean, the actual cost of inflation. I mean, I ran various business in the U.S. and I looked at my business costs, even in the '80s in California, '80s and yeah, '80s. I mean, my cost of running my photo studio in San Francisco went up by approximately 17% per year. Now, that means at 17% a year with the compound interest, that means you're doubling your prices and your expenses every 4 years.
Yep.
And that's the actual rate of inflation. When people say we have 2, 3%, I'm said, yeah, per month, dumbass,
Yeah.
not per year.
And they
Okay.
changed the metrics. You know,
Yep.
if the data doesn't show what you want it to show, no
Yep.
problem. We'll just change how we look at the data. They did that with
Right.
inflation. They did that with recession during the
Mm-hmm.
pandemic while Biden
Yeah.
was in
Yeah.
office, and then they changed it back when Trump got in office so they could,
Mm-hmm.
make it look like him. Jerome Powell, like this
Oh, God,
guy
yeah.
is just a piece of shit. And the fact that like
Absolutely.
the Federal Reserve still exists is just unbelievable to me.
Yeah,
People
but
don't
try getting in the
understand
way
that the
of it.
Federal Reserve is not really part of the government. Like when Trump
Yeah.
was getting elected, they asked, "What are you going to do with Jerome Powell?" Oh, he'll step down. It's like, no, he's not. He doesn't have to listen to you. He doesn't have to drop interest
He
rates.
doesn't.
Like
It's
he's a
its own
political
entity. It's its
animal,
own
just like
agency.
all these people are. He should be dropping, raising rates right now. Like we should have like Paul Volcker style. We should be at like 17%, 20% right now to actually tackle inflation. He's not going to
Right.
do
Right.
that. He's going to do whatever he can to make the economy run like shit so Trump looks bad.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. But I mean, Trump. Unfortunately, isn't helping. And then God help us if we're really going through this Iran thing. I mean, all they need to do is close the Straits of Hormuz. Oh, yeah, well, we'll show them. Yeah, well, it didn't work so well with the Houthi, did it? So, if everyone's trying to take out Iran's, they already vouched to take out all the other oil fields. We're looking at $10 a gallon, and that's just to warm up.
Yep.
So, I mean, be careful, Trump. Be careful. You're walking right into a trap. And
And this idea that they're screaming death to America all the time, I think is just ridiculous. Like I see videos from the Middle East and it looks like the younger population is into the same things that we're into. They're watching YouTube, they're learning English, like they seem to be decent people. Like there's going to be a massive change in the next
yeah.
20 years as
Oh,
boomers
yeah.
start to die, Gen X
Mm-hmm.
and millennials start to take over cuz we're not the same. Like we look at the
No.
world in different ways. The
Yes.
boomer generation
Mm-hmm.
is they're a lot different. And in a lot of ways they've destroyed the fucking country as
I
well,
know, and
but
I live in a building full of those people, and I have nothing in common, even though I'm almost the same age as they
yeah.
are. But I mean, I self-identify, in this day and age. If I want to be a cat, I can be a cat. But okay, I self-identify as a Gen X because I grew up with
Yeah.
MTV, the Atari,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. So, I have nothing to say to the boomers. They're living in the 40s. I live in the 80s, 90s
Yeah.
in my mind when I grew up, and I have nothing in common. But these people are definitely not able to change, and they're like dinosaurs, and they will not budge, and they will only go when they die out.
Yeah. And the fact like
Um,
that the Muslims all hate us for some is they don't hate us because we're free. Like
no, no, that's not because of our freedom that
yeah,
they hate us.
like
It's
I don't
because
rem-
of our
I think it's
tyranny.
Tom Woods who said like he's great. He goes, they act like Osama bin Laden came across a copy of the Constitution one day, read it, and goes, "We can't have this." It's like, yeah, that's so
Yeah,
stupid.
right.
Like,
Yeah,
that
that's a good
never
one. I
happened.
like that.
We
That's
had good
that's
relations.
exactly how it happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
Right.
we
Sure.
had good relations with the Muslims until Israel
Right.
took over, and they
Right.
hate us right now because Israel wipes people out.
I know they
It's a
do, and
disaster.
I'm definitely
And
not a fan of that country. I think it's an abomination at this point. I think, and I actually said that 30 years ago, but I mean, it's forfeit its right to its very existence, and it'll be. It's like, what is that song? Carry on, my wayward son. There'll
yeah,
be peace when you are done or gone, or whatever it says
yeah,
in that song. And it's there's not going to be peace, and there's not going to be peace as long as Israel's allowed to persist. And
no,
they wanted literally 100-fold their territory because it's a
yep.
tiny little country the size of Manhattan.
They want the
And they really
entire Middle
wanted
East.
they want a piece of every frigging neighboring country. South Africa, I mean, good luck with that. They want to literally have 100 times the territory that they occupy now. But it's not going to happen. And if we go toe to toe with Iran, well, yeah, we're the greatest, biggest, baddest military in the world. But it didn't go
work
so well
out
with
well
the
in
Houthi
Iraq.
and Iran. It's a massive country. It's the size of Texas, right?
90
It's the
million
size
people.
yeah, 90 million people, and they have mountains, and they have resources, and they have underground bunkers. They have shit like we have in NORAD, right? That Omaha, and you can't bomb them, even with the 67 M6712 or whatever that bunker busting nuke is called. If we were the first to pull nukes, man, we'll be a pariah on the world stage if we
And
aren't already, and
yep.
that's not going to end well for any of us. And it's not. This is not. I'm all for America first. But what part of this is really truly for America? Does it serve you? Does it serve the farmers? Does it serve the workers? Does it serve anyone in America except for some warmongering bankers?
Yep. Yep.
And I mean, I sound like a commie, but I'm
No,
everything
you
but. I
don't.
hate nothing more than
No,
communism,
you sound
except
like me.
maybe
You
the
sound like an
Nazis.
anarcho-capitalist. It's great. You know,
But I
they're doing
mean,
themselves a
it's
disservice too. They're turning the world against them. I think that those
yep.
missiles were allowed to strike Tehran, or were allowed to strike, Israel. I think they let them in. Hey, let's get some sympathy here. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's
It's
this
yeah,
ridiculous thing
that's
where
a
they
big
strike first, and then all of a sudden they're a victim. Oh God, poor us. They're
right, right.
attacking us. Oh, blah, 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 blah. You
Yeah,
know,
it's like it reminds me of that little school kid, that the little school kid that's like hitting you, but then it's like
yeah,
hiding behind daddy and still hitting you, right? But
yeah.
then it runs right back behind daddy. Hit me
Stop
if you
hitting
dare.
me. Stop hitting me. It's so ridiculous. And I saw some really great, like, this is not my observation. Somebody else did it. They're going, look at how targeted the attacks were in
Oh
Tehran. They
yeah,
were taking out individual apartment buildings and apartments instead of the entire building. It's like, okay, if they're that targeted, why did they level Gaza?
right. Exactly, exactly. Well, that's just genocide. And no,
Yeah.
no, you can't say that's being anti-Semitic. No matter, never mind that the Arabs, they are also Semites by definition. But okay. But I mean, if you call out if you call out genocide, suddenly you're an anti-Semite. I mean, that's like the boilerplate excuse. Like, it's like a kid. I don't care what you say. La, 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 la,
Yeah.
la. You can say whatever you want. I'm not listening. I'm not listening. I'm just going to repeat my narrative until I'm blue in the face, and you did.
Yep.
And that's what they're doing. And it's not right. It's nothing. People say, well, you're unpatriotic. No. But these people are not our friends. Now, are we using Israel or is Israel using us? The age old debate, almost
Yeah.
like a chicken and the egg kind of thing.
The tail
I'd say
wags the
yes,
dog.
both and. I think we're using each other. And I think Israel is using America, everybody as much as America is using Israel as a battering ram, just like they used the Nazi Ukraine as a battering ram against Russia to get all their resources, break up Russia. I mean, you don't have to be, oh, you're a Putin stooge. I don't give
Shut
two
up.
shits. If you call me, you can call me that all day. So
Are
what
you
if I am? I don't care.
are you
But
familiar with Gad Sad?
I'm sorry.
Are you familiar with a guy named Gad Sad? He's like a Middle Eastern. He's an American.
Okay.
He's Middle Eastern by like race, but he's a college
Okay.
professor. And this guy is fucking retarded. Like he was going off on Twitter all day yesterday, calling
Okay.
anybody who is not for this war like
Oh
a
yeah.
oh, these people just love Tehran. They love the Middle East. They love Putin. And it's like, this is a perfect example of an overeducated professor who has
Right.
no ability to relate with the common man. And like, this is
Exactly.
one of the
Exactly.
reasons that our society is fucked is because we have these freaking college professors that have never worked a real job. They went to
Never.
college right out of high school. They stayed in
Mm-hmm.
college. They got a job and like
Mm-hmm.
they can't produce in a free market and they have
No.
no ability to relate to someone like me and you. Like
Not at
we've
all.
talked for
No.
less than an hour and I already know that you have no love for Putin or any of these people. Like we love America. We want
Right.
Americans to
Exactly.
succeed.
Yeah.
We want young men to have great lives and get married and own homes and have children and not worry about sending those children into the military to go fight these stupid freaking wars. Like that
Exactly.
has nothing to do with loving the I have no love for the Middle East. My ex-wife's family came from Iran
Mm-hmm.
when the Shah,
Right.
like that whole thing, they came over here.
Right.
They're great people. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like I remember we had a wedding at my family's at my dad's house, and my grandfather lives in the same property. My grandfather was, he's a Republican, and he's
Mm-hmm.
probably, anyways. I told him,
Mm-hmm.
hey man, no parking lot jokes. Like these people are great. Like you're gonna like them. Just please, no
Mm-hmm.
parking lot jokes. Like we don't need to do
Right.
that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And he did make a couple of them, but he ended
Mm-hmm.
up like sitting down with my ex-wife's, his uncle who was
Mm-hmm.
into the stock market. He was actually like one of the top heart surgeons at the University of Chicago or something, like very smart guy. And they sat and talked for like 2 hours. He had a great time. It's like, these are not
Right.
evil, terrible people that need to be wiped off the face of the earth. They want a good
Not at
life
all.
for their families. It's
Right.
just ridiculous. And they came
And
over
you,
here and
yeah.
they didn't want to be Iranians anymore. They want to be looked at as Americans.
Right. They do. Of course.
They
Yeah.
converted to Christianity. Like these
Mm-hmm.
people want to be Americans, a lot of
Right.
them, and many of them we don't want in this country because they don't want to be
No.
Americans. But
No.
there
But then
are
we need to
some
close our
there that
borders.
believe in the same things that we do. They just
Mm-hmm.
don't like us screwing around in their
Right.
homeland, which is the same thing that we wouldn't want. Like, if there
No.
were actually terror attacks in this country, which I don't believe for a second. Like, I have family who's, oh, they're bringing over terror cells, and it's like the border's been open for fucking
Yeah, well,
years.
that
If
too.
they
Yeah,
had
then
terror
close the damn
cells
border,
coming in,
please.
they'd have
But
done something already. Like, this
mhm,
is ridiculous. This whole
yeah.
terror cell thing. Like, if we have some sort of terror attack in the next few weeks,
Mhm.
I am not even going to be close to buying that it's a terror attack. Like, I am fully prepared for false flags at this point, which sucks to say,
Absolutely,
but like I'm
absolutely.
so cynical with our
Right.
government, with the Israeli government, with all this bullshit that's going on. If
Mhm.
I see an attack on the news, I am instantly pointing the finger at Israel and our government.
There you go. Thank you, brother. Absolutely aiming to that. Yeah, and that's how I look at it. And I mean, and also look like for instance with the Ukraine. Imagine if the Russians and the Chinese would set up shop in Canada and Mexico, and suddenly they'd put like intermediate nuclear range missiles into Mexico. We would have a problem. Remember the Cuban Missile? Well,
Yeah,
I'm old enough to remember the Cuban Missile Crisis. I was 4 years old when it happened.
I
So
know about
yeah,
it though. Yeah.
and I mean, it's if we did that, we would have a problem with it. And all these countries, we want their resources. Read the Iran papers by the Brookings Institution. Read that. It's part of the plan. It is completely planned out in great detail. All you need to do is read, Zygmunt
Yeah.
Brzezinski's book, The Grand Chessboard, and you know this is all PNAC and so forth. Elliot Abrams. This has been planned for decades and decades. 7 countries in 5 years. Wesley Clark, Supreme Commander of NATO at the time, said all that.
Yeah.
We want to do that. And we've gone down the list. It's 6, and the only one that missing, collect all 7, like merchandising and McDee's. Collect all 7. The only one, oh, I'm missing, I have an ace, and I would only need Iran now. That's the only one country
Yep.
missing. Once we have that, we got it covered.
Yep. And
And
these
that's what
people
this
are
is.
so full of themselves. And we're so lucky that we have the internet now that we can talk
Yes.
to each other. And somebody
Yes.
who's read these books, they brag about this shit in these books because they
Yep.
they didn't write those books for us to read. They wrote
No,
them
no,
for
no.
themselves to read. Project for a New American Century was
Yes,
not
PNAC.
written
There
for
you
me
go.
and you to read. That was written
No,
for
no,
them
they
to
don't
read
want us to read it.
internally. But now we have the ability to point these
Hmm.
things out and say, hey, look at what these people are bragging about
Yeah,
this shit.
bragging.
They are
Yep.
bragging about it. And
Yes.
I think that's going to be the final nail in the coffin, is that like these people are going to have to go back to the shadows. There's no way they're
Yeah.
going to be able to act this way in public anymore. Megan McCain, my
Right.
father did, my father. Shut up, Megan
Yeah, yeah,
McCain.
yeah.
Like Lindsey
Right.
Graham, get
Oh
out of
God.
here. Like that guy is just
Ah.
unbelievable. And
He's a traitor. I mean, it's
he's a traitor.
sedition. It's definitely sedition what he's committed. He and
Yep.
Blumenthal. That's sedition. You cannot. I mean, it's also a violation of the Logan Act. Not that it's ever been prosecuted, but it still stands. And you cannot. A senator cannot negotiate on behalf of the U.S. government.
Yep.
That's sedition.
Yep. You know,
And you can't do it.
Thomas Massey said last night that he's
Oh,
introducing a bill.
that's the only guy I
today.
give money to ever.
Yeah, Massey's
And
the
Rand
man.
Paul.
I hope he runs for president at some point.
Yep.
You know,
I like him.
he's introducing this war powers bill. How many wars has it been since World War II that we've gone to without going to Congress?
Oh,
Like, it's
60,
ridiculous.
80, I forget.
And right now there's like 3 signatories on the bill, and I am very interested to see who signs on and who doesn't.
Mhm.
It's not going to pass. There's no way it's going to pass. APAC has paid off all of these fucking congressmen and
Exactly.
senators, so there's
Exactly.
no way it's going to pass. But let's get on record who is
Mhm.
bought and who isn't.
Exactly. That would be great. If you know whose payroll these people are on, it would be such an eye opener for Americans.
Yep.
But we believe that stuff, and we still believe in this country, this party versus that party, and this is Republican. No, it's a rigged game, and it's really. I saw this. This is one of my pivotal moments when I was 7 years old. I watched a puppet theater. I was in Germany when I was a kid. My dad and I were there. I was in 2nd grade, and there was a big, stage made from plywood, and the good guy beats the bad guy, and eventually it's like the final battle between good and evil, Harry Potter versus Voldemort, and then it ends, right? And everybody's filing out there out of the room, and I was like the kid that wanted to literally look behind the scenes, and so I was lingering, and I was looking, and the door opens, and I see the head puppeteer take the good guy off his right hand and the bad guy off his left hand. My dad, who was I'm sort of like an intelligence brat, that's why we're there in Wiesbaden. But I looked and said, Dad, did you see that? Same guy. And my dad said, you learned a lot about how the real world works, son, didn't you? or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I guess I did. That was a pit. I said, okay, it's all a rigged game. It's like divide et impera, like Machiavelli said, divide and conquer.
Yep.
And it's like the good guys here, the bad guys here, and you don't understand that the actual puppeteer is right up here where you don't see him. And he's manipulating both sides and playing them both against the middle, and all of us all against the middle, and they're laughing, and we're running after this. It's almost like Lad for Brian. Follow the sandal, no, follow the gourd. You know, it's like all of a sudden you have like religious, Protestants, Catholics, this and that, this, Shia and Muslim, whatever, and Sunni. I mean, Muslims, and it's always like this completely fabricated dialectic, dualism that never can be reconciled. And we need to reconcile and understand, look, it is one guy that manipulates both sides.
Yep.
And we need to figure out who that guy is.
Yep.
And then stop them.
As I'm going to quote Tom Woods again here, one of his rules is no matter who you vote for, you always get John McCain.
I was going to say that. That's okay, right? Yeah, I couldn't remember who the quotation was by, but yeah, I was going to actually say that. No matter whom you vote for, you always end up with John McCain.
Yep.
And here we are.
Well, Orlando, this was great. That hour flew by. I have to get going for an appointment, so we'll have to get out of here.
But I'll let you go. I'm sorry about the late start. But it was great talking to you, brother. I think we're definitely on the same page here in many, many, many ways. And it's good to talk to you. It's good to talk to a true American, good libertarian, and all that. And maybe we'll do it again.
Yep,
so
absolutely. We'll do this again sometime. All right. Good night.
Sounds great, brother.